Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Sally Spencer Thomas, co-chair of the Workplace Suicide Prevention and Postvention Committee of the American Association of Suicidology. Today's webinar is on mitigating risk, suicide prevention, and workplace violence with Felix Nader. Felix is a security management consultant with Nader Associates. He's a nationally recognized, highly skilled workplace violence prevention advisor and consultant with over 30 years of federal law enforcement and consulting experience as a workplace violence prevention consultant and a U.S. postal inspector. The Workplace Suicide Prevention National Guidelines are a collaborative partnership between the American Association of Suicidology, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and United Suicide Survivors International. So on behalf of all three partners, we welcome you. The foundation of the Workplace Suicide Prevention Guidelines is based on these 8 guiding principles. And today we're going to really focus in on harm reduction. We also offer 9 practices, so 9 ways to take action within the guidelines. And today's focus will be on mitigating risk. And with that, I turn it over to Felix.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to cover recognizing workplace suicide prevention realities from a risk mitigation perspective, envisioning a comprehensive suicide workplace prevention approach, and then imagining an organizational workplace suicide prevention mindset that is critically important to how we convey the value of our prevention initiative to our organization. So today we're going to cover recognizing workplace suicide prevention realities from a risk mitigation perspective, envisioning a comprehensive suicide workplace prevention approach, and then imagining an organizational workplace suicide prevention mindset that is critically important to how we convey the value of our prevention initiative to our organization. And in his book, The Prevention of Virtue, Understanding Murder-Suicide, he estimates that around 2% of suicides in the US are accompanied by the murder of one other person, equating to 2 murder-suicides per day. And 90% of the incidents, males are the perpetrator in the events, and females in 75% of those cases are the victims. When we look at the threat of workplace of suicide prevention, we have to look at how us as an organization can actually understand the importance of bringing the workforce in so they become part of the solution. Another story that comes to mind, and this is kind of a little bit of homework for you when it comes to understanding prevention realities, because they're all around us. We just don't have the mindset. And because we don't have the mindset, we don't have the approach. So with your permission, I'm going to give you homework beyond this webinar, and it relates to that have been near and dear to me, simply because the root cause and the contributing factors were there. That's the Molson Coors incident involving multiple deaths and a murder-suicide situation that I want you to be aware of, February of 2020. And then the Hartford Beer Distributor in almost the same thing, going back to August 2010, 10 years apart. And guess what I found was the root cause in both of those? And I'm talking from an analyst perspective, racism. But yet employers will tend to blame the employee suicide as opposed to looking at their organizational culture in trying to ferret and identify potential contributing factors. So workplaces are in fact the microcosm of our society. The workplace is affected by the environment, societal issues and concerns that come into the workplace, and then family factors that are definitely inherent in business relationships, workplace relationships, and family and friend relationships. And then of course you've got workplace concerns that aren't being addressed by the preoccupied victim. I like to call the suicide potential a victim. And then the exposure that's not addressed. And by the that's not addressed is after a while, the person that has the ideations internalizes those concerns and those thoughts. And coworkers begin to look at them as malingers, shirkers, people trying to avoid work. And then that signals to that we've got a potential problem. So the intervention strategies are not wholesome. They're not always matured and prepared, and they oftentimes are contributory to the eventual outcome of an unfortunate situation. So when we talk about proactive intervention measures, we've got to focus in on the problem recognition. What are the warning signs, and how versed are we in recognizing those warning signs and doing something in a culture that is mutually supportive, where supervisors are part of the solution and are not distrustfully viewed upon by the workforce? We have to have the ability to recognize that when the individual might be internalizing these issues, that we're there to them with open arms. Supervisors have to dismiss their misperceptions of their observations, and they shouldn't make assumptions based upon their standard of performance, efficiency, and production. We've got to first ask. And oh, by the way, when you ask, you might get an answer that might throw you for a loop because you may not be prepared in dealing with what you're about to hear. So the implications of misassessing and making assumptions in dealing with an individual that might have ideations of committing suicide, they resent it. They feel as though they're being picked on. And when they feel they're being picked on, they don't trust any longer. As a result of this lack of trust, they withdraw. And that's when they suddenly have the target on their chest that says, come and get me. So we as an organization have to focus on overlooking the policy limitations and redefining them so that they embrace suicide prevention. It's got to be an organizational response. We have to move away from standoff, improperly designed training that focuses on a wholesome approach to suicide prevention consistent with workplace violence prevention so that the workforce sees credibility and can wrap their arms around a environment that cares about them. So culture is important in cultivating a responsive intervention strategy that it's on not overreacting when you see a problematic situation, because the rush is to discipline. And when you shut down that employee's desires to want to open up and be cooperative and share his or her concerns. So when we look at suicide prevention, it just can't be as a tunnel vision perspective. It's got to be a funnel vision, the widest possible view, because it's not like workplace violence, although it has similarities. This individual internalizes his or her concerns. So when we talk about a microcosm of society, that is what we have to deal with in a workplace environment. You embrace the potential of anybody having any type of problem that needs to be discussed. And you've got to create the environment so that the environmental and family factors that typically interfere with amicable dialogue are overcome by leadership. The workplace, in their desires to be efficient in how they run their operations, undoubtedly contribute to the angst. We've got to create a level playing field where every employee, whether it's a disgruntled employee who's unhappy about the way he or she's being treated, or a person who is preoccupied in thoughts because of a variety of different reasons, we must open up dialogue and create an environment that is amicable and friendly. Workplace violence is an ongoing process involving multiple intervention strategies, of which suicide prevention is significant. So when productive employees begin raising concerns, don't rush to assume or to impose your will and then ultimately decide because the person is not doing what you expect them to do, but rather rush to find out why, what's going on. These action steps are formalized in a program management perspective. I'll just go through a few in the interest of time. Develop a program, a workplace violence prevention program and plan around a response once you recognize the warning signs of suicide. And engage HR not from a, oh my goodness, what do we do with this problem but from a formula, professionalized approach that opens up the organization to a variety of different resources. Educate the workforce and bring management as leaders of the organization into the greater understanding that this truly is, and within our organization, that we must ensure that we carry that person to a healthy and better off position and place in the workforce. And as we wrap up, I'd like to just make reference, a few references that are available to you. Others that I have, we certainly can share, but for the benefit of this presentation, I've provided these for us.
Thank you so much, Felix. I really appreciate those perspectives.
You're
For
welcome.
those of you out there who are ready, please take the pledge. Go to workplacesuicideprevention.com. Take the pledge to make suicide prevention a health and safety priority at your workplace or in your professional association.